Dear Anonymous, why do I fear enlightenment? Why am I afraid that when I reach spiritual enlightenment, from what I understand, I will be no more, without a purpose? Can you please explain? The answer is very obvious, and it's standing right in your face. We in the playground of consciousness, existence, are what we have been seeking all along, behind the facade of innumerable expressions of forms. You have to recognize that ultimately the question is coming from the questioner, which is undoubtedly the mind. This self-portrait or image that tallied up a story that you mistake and believe to be you. When you're asked, why am I afraid of becoming enlightened, what you're really doing is allowing the mind to speak on your behalf, believing that to be real. Who you are, as I mentioned many times, is already the source. Who you're not is the one you believe or mistaken yourself to be as the one striving to attain enlightenment, or is afraid of enlightenment as though it's some type of achievement, some type of goal to be reached, and that you're not there yet. This is how religions could devise belief systems that tell us that reuniting with God is somehow achieved in the future after death. See, this is the whole point of all the spiritual reminders to tell us to stay present, because when you are truly in the present, you are in a state of who you are. There are a lot of misconceptions and erroneous beliefs concerning what it is to be spiritually present, because what happens is our mind grasps these understandings and misinterprets it according to the way it sees it, through its dualistic filters of perception. So being present isn't having your attention on all of your senses that are around you or noticing everything. Even noticing things without thoughts or judgments is not being present. When you are truly in the moment, you're in the grace of divine recognition of who you are now. And it's a very sharp thrust of awareness that you have to be able to break free of trying to be present without self-knowledge or self-knowing. So that has to be understood. As long as we identify with our thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and our memories, as long as we allow it to define us, as long as we allow it to paint a picture of who we are, then we're going to always feel that we're never content, not good enough or worthy, incomplete. That there's going to always be this inner struggle, this inner tension, making an effort to strive to be something that you're not. You cannot be an enlightened person. It's an oxymoron. When you recognize who you are, there's nothing else. So there's nothing to strive for. There's nothing on the other side that you have to become. You are the non-dual dreaming spirit with the time-bound experience of amnesia for but a short time. It's another way of saying you're in a state of divine self-forgetfulness, and so it's not coming clear to you. There's a fog that is over your seeing, that you cannot perceive your true nature at the deepest level. It's very simple, but the mind makes it very complex and very difficult to understand and relate to, as long as you bought into this belief as being the person. And as I've mentioned many times as well, there is nothing wrong with recognizing that the role that you're taking on as a human being, it's innocent in itself. What happens is the corruption of the mind that mistakes itself to be the human being or the person before recognizing that it's infinite consciousness. And then you accept your limitation and you reject the limitless aspect of your being. So that's the problem. Your focus is shifted on the personal me, and not the unrealized, unmanifested, impersonal state of pure potential. It's all that is, the ground state of being. So when you're coming to me and you're asking, why am I afraid of enlightenment? Recognize, pointed out that this is coming from the ego that feels that it's separate, distinct as an individual, and somehow enlightenment or God is apart from it, which creates a subject-object split. This is the sensory illusion that we've got ourselves caught into. Once you recognize that it is the little I, or the ego identity, that has been asking this question, then you'll be able to create enough space between you and that question to recognize that the source of who you are is already God. This will allow the question to fall away on its own. And then you can return back to a playfulness of recognizing, oh, okay, now I got it. I shifted my focus and to see things in reverse. Now I gotta go back to seeing things for what it truly is. The person that we've mistaken ourselves to be is only a mask, covering the beingness. The modification and belief that we are the body is simply just an instrument for tasting experiences. Our physical bodies and the world are effective distinctions to keep us locked in the illusion. Anytime you see things in reverse is when you start identifying with the separate sense of identity, this thought-constructed self that your mind has collected and accumulated over a course of time that you believe very much in, and have made a very strong investment as who you are. Recognize you are not the sum total of all of your past choices and thoughts. You are behind and beyond. You're the screen in which those thoughts and choices that the persona, the character that you are now playing the role of, has lived. You are the center of all projections, assigning power to the internal definitions to the external reflections that you perceive. You are the ever-present now of awareness. Everything else is just ambiguous, subjective distinctions that stem from that. You are the divine that has given rise to that, and without awareness it would not exist. Understand the phenomenal change of all of these things that come and go are not who you are. Even your thoughts that you believe is so strongly close to you, so personal to what you believe yourself to be. You don't have to identify with the thoughts to use the thoughts as aware presence. All that is needed is pure, unclouded watchfulness. All that needs to be dropped are the thoughts that obstruct that. And a lot of people may not like this because it brings you more close to dissolution, the deconstruction process of the psychological self. As I've always stressed, emptiness is not a void or a vacuum of non-existence. It is the field of pure potentiality. The ego gains strength and power from finding its identity through self-preservation, limitation, and separation. You have to be able to let go of this false self or image of which you've made yourself out to be. You gotta let go of seeing yourself through the eyes of other people and recognize that you are the unchanging, immutable aspect of self without a second. Embrace this. Do not get caught up in being unconscious of that understanding. That is to prevent yourself from being caught up in these mind games that your ego is still trying to maintain, playing this chess game with you so that it can be in control and to run you. In other words, outwit you, distract you, and shift your focus away from the God self inwards and make it appear as though it's somewhere external or outside of you. That's your ego's job. It's to put the attention to the body, mind, self alone. And who you really are is temporarily living in the body-mind reality, but ultimately is beyond it. When you recognize that you are not even the body-mind, that the body-mind exists within you. You are not the story that you believed in yourself to be, the story exists within you. You are not in the world exists within you. You are the perceiver of all phenomena. You cannot be the transient objects appearing in the untouched space of your consciousness. So it's important to remain in this space of neutrality, your untouched being. Once you embrace that, taking on the responsibility of finally facing yourself. As the famous quote says, we will do anything to avoid facing our own souls. In this case, we will do anything to avoid facing our true self. For surrendering to our true nature, the flowering of presence, there is no one to blame or cast responsibility onto anymore. There are no victim or perpetrator roles. We must remain as the alert witnessing the underlining I am essence of the rules without over-identifying with them. There is simplicity in just being in the aliveness as the unchanging observer of all that you experience and perceive in your reality. There is a joy of being in rediscovering the quiet inner space of untouched stillness that lies underneath the compulsive thinking, emotions, and activities. And then all of a sudden, the goal to reach what you consider peace or enlightenment comes to a halt, stopped in its tracks. When you recognize it was always here now, it was always present, then it's nowhere else to be found.